Hello, and welcome to this session about referencing from Sabrina Smart and Antonis Sidoras. Today, we're going to be learning about how to use APA referencing, the 7th edition. You will be looking at how to reference and cite printed books. You will also be given an introduction to terms such as quoting and summarizing when it comes to creating your assignments. And you will also receive an introduction to what secondary referencing is. Now let's get started.
So what is APA? APA stands for the American Psychological Association style of referencing and is within the Harvard family of referencing. It is author date style and includes both an in-text reference and a reference list at the end of your essay. It is used across disciplines, including in the social sciences and within Sheffield High School in Library and Information Studies. It's currently within its 7th edition. So why is it important to cite and reference resources appropriately? Referencing ensures that all authors have been appropriately cited for their works and ideas, and is a requirement of all academic writing. It is therefore important to cite fully, correctly, and appropriately. It is important to reference to avoid plagiarism, which is taking another's work without acknowledgement, as this can have an impact on the outcome of your degree and or have implication for discipline implications. It is important that all authors receive acknowledgement of their ideas and work, and correct referencing shows that you have undertaken research and reading for your topic, and shows that you can academically write and cite as required by your programme or by your university. So what can APA reference? As all authors or academics should be referenced, APA references can identify several different data or information styles, including books, book chapters, periodicals, which include journals, e-journals, newspapers, magazines, or newsletters, website and internet sources, theses, including masters and PhDs, conferences and seminars, or audio-visual media, including TV, radio, music, online video, or podcasts. It can also reference maps and social media. Today's session will focus on printed books.
So, let's get started. Are you new to the information school at Sheffield and not familiar with the APA referencing model? What if I told you that mastering book references and citations can happen in the palm of your hands? How? Well, let's have a look. There are 5 components that you need when referencing a printed book in your list of references or bibliography. 1. The author's surname. 2. The year of publication. 3. The title of the work. 4. The place of publication. And finally, number 5, the publisher. Now look at the diagram and notice how each component corresponds to a finger on your hand. So you can see the author, the year, the title of the work, the place of publication, and the publisher in the palm of your hands in order from left to right. These 5 components then need to be formatted in the following way, as you can look at the example in the screen. Now, when it comes to citing the book, there are only 2 of the 5 components listed here which you will need to use, and those are the author and the year of publication. A trick for remembering how to cite using our palms is to join your thumb and your index finger to form the OK hand sign like this. You then have the author and the year, and you can format this in the following 2 ways. You can include the surname and the year in rounded brackets with a comma, or you can include the surname followed by the year in the rounded brackets. The only exception to this is if you're inserting a direct quote in your writing, but we will be looking at this at a later stage. So this is how you can cite and reference a printed book with a single author. Now, let's look at what happens if you are citing or referencing a book with more than one author.
As my colleague has shown you how to reference with one author, I am now going to have a look at referencing and citing a book that has multiple authors. We will have a look at a book with 2 authors, 3 to 5 authors, and then more than 5. So as when citing a book that only has one author, appropriately referencing authors is extremely important. This includes books that has multiple authors. First we will take a look at 2 authors. This follows very closely to what we have already seen. Your in-text reference will name both authors and will have the year. For example, Smith and Smythe 2017. This will have an open bracket, Smith and Smythe, 2017, close bracket within your text. And your reference list then will have the author surname, the initials, and the author surname and initials, and then the bracket, in the brackets the year, and then the title of the work, the location, and the publisher. An example of this can be seen on screen. When we have 3 to 5 authors, it changes slightly. So when you're citing, in the first instance when you are citing 3 to 5 authors, you will name all the authors, surname of all the authors. For example, Smith, Smythe and Byrne in 2017 will have open brackets Smith, Smythe and Byrne, 2017, and then close brackets. But in subsequent citations, it will only contain the name of Smith, and then et al. Will follow, and then 2017 will close your bracket. Your reference list, on the other hand, will list out each author, the year, the title of the work, the location, and the publisher. This can be seen on the screen. When you have a book that has more than 5 authors, this again changes. You will name only the first author, and again, as with more than subsequent citations previously seen, we would put et al. After the first name and then followed by the year. For example, Smith et al. 2017. This indicates that there are a number of other authors who are not named. Your reference list, on the other hand, will include all authors in the same format, with surname, initials for the number of authors you have, then the year, the title of the work, and the location and the publisher. This can be seen on the screen. We will just have a couple of questions on what we have just covered. Question 1. When do you use et al. In an in-text citation? You will use et al. In an in-text citation when you have 3 to 5 authors and subsequent citations, or when you have more than 5 authors in any citation. Question 2. When listing a work with 7 authors in a reference list, I only have to list the first 2. This is incorrect. In a reference list, all authors must be listed. So even when you have 7 authors, you must list them all. Question 3. Books with 9 authors cannot be referenced in full. This is incorrect. Books even with 9 authors must be referenced in full in your reference list, although in-text citations will have the first author followed by et al. And the year. Now we will look at citing multiple works by an author in one text. So when referencing multiple works by an author in one text, the in-text citations will follow normal rules, where the works of the same author and year, a lowercase should be added after the year in order to identify that it is a different citation. For example, Smith, 2001, 2004C, close bracket. The reference list is then arranged by the year of publication, starting with the earliest. Now we will look at citing authors who share the same surname. So where authors share the same surname, the initial of the first author should be included in the in-text referencing. For example, B. Smith and Smythe 2017. If multiple authors within a single referencing share the same surname, however, initials are not needed and the rules remain the same as per previous referencing. For example, Smith and Smythe 2017.
Now we're going to be looking at quoting and summarizing and evaluating their use and the potential pitfalls that they entail. If there is a quote that really stood out with you and you would like to include it in your essay, then that's absolutely fine, and you can do it using the following way. If the quote is less than 40 words, you can include it in the main body of your essay with quotation marks, with the source present right next to it. You would also need to include the author, the year of publication, and the page number within rounded brackets and commas separating them. If the quote is at the end of your sentence, include the information within round brackets followed by a full stop, like this. If you mention the author and the year in your sentence, or if the quote forms part of a sentence, just follow the quotation with the page number in brackets and carry on with the sentence, like this. Now, if your quote is over 40 words, you should include the quote as a separate paragraph with an indentation. Also, make sure you use a colon at the end of the previous sentence. If you use the author and the year in the sentence prior to the quote, you can include the page number in rounded brackets at the end of the quote. Now, what if the text I'm reading does not have pages? Well, don't worry about that. You just need to include the number of the paragraph in the quotation instead, abbreviated to para, like this example here. Now moving on to summarizing. What is summarizing? It is capturing someone else's words and original ideas in your own words. Stop motion animation is a time-consuming, technically challenging, precise activity. How would you summarize this? A. Stop motion animation is a long-winded, technically difficult, exact activity. B. Stop motion animation is a precise activity that is time-consuming and technically challenging. C. Creating a stop-motion animation can take a substantial amount of time, as it requires the operator to overcome limitations to do with the technique and accuracy associated with this process. If you went with choice A, then you have sadly picked an unsuitable summary. Why? It's because this summary is very close to the original statement. The only differences are changing the odd words, and that is not substantial. If you went with option B, you have also picked an unsuitable summary. Simply rearranging the sentence will not be suitable. Now let us look at number 3, and let us see why that makes a good example. You can notice that the writer is restating the original quote in their own words. That is suitable for summarizing and shows that you have the ability to interpret other people's words. Now, with summarizing, all you need when you're citing your summary is to again include the name of the person, of the author, and also have the year of publication in rounded brackets. So now we're going to have a look at what secondary referencing is, and I'd like to hear from you. Do you think it is A, referencing two authors at the same time, B, referencing an author referring to an original body of work, or C, referring to things said by the same author at the same time? Can you guess the correct answer? The correct answer is point B. Secondary referencing is when you reference the work of an author who has referenced the work of another author and the primary source is not available. Is secondary referencing encouraged? No. And why is that? It's because when you read an author referencing another piece of original work, you must be aware that this is an interpretation of the original idea by the author, which can easily carry biases. This also takes away the opportunity for you to create your own opinion based on the original idea discussed. However, if you find yourself in the position of wanting to include secondary references, you can go ahead And you can make it known that you're stating someone else's ideas by using the phrase as cited in your in-text citation. So you can look at this example and see how you have the original author and the year of publication and mention as cited in this book. Now it's time for a little quiz to test your knowledge. Question number 1. When referencing using APA, do you A. reference in text only, B. reference in a footnote, C. reference in text and in a reference list? The correct answer is C. reference in text and in reference list. Question number 2. When citing in text, where B, you have identified the author, for example, given Smith states, do you A. identify the author only, B. add the year to brackets directly after the author's name, or C. include the year at the end of the sentence? The correct answer is B. You add the year to brackets directly after the author's surname. We have now reached the end of our session. By this point, we're hoping that you have been able to understand the basic elements that are needed when you're referencing printed books with the APA style, the 7th edition. And by this stage, we're hoping that you're also confident when it comes to referencing and cited books with one or multiple authors. And you're also familiar with the terms quoting, summarizing, secondary referencing, and how these can be applied to your essays.
Thank you for your attention. We would now like to invite you to provide feedback on this session using SurveyMonkey. The link has been provided.